What in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk. I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Whistle Talk, the Umpire edition tonight. Something near and dear to my heart. Got another round table set up for us tonight. But before we dive in talking umpiring with this esteemed crew that I have joining us tonight, I want to have everybody just reminded, hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons. Let's get the good word out to what we all do here as officials, be it football officials, if you're in basketball, or if you're rolling into a spring sport now. We're all working hard at what we do. Let's hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get everybody else a little bit more knowledgeable about what we do. So hit those buttons and we'll rock and roll. So tonight I got with us five gentlemen that were kind enough to take some time out of their busy schedules to jump on here tonight. And all five of them are umpires. The loving position that we have as an umpire, being in the middle of the field, be it some in the offensive backfield, some in the defensive backfield, but we are we are a unique breed. I'm going to say that for our position. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for jumping on tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to be
You're
here.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
So, so I'm lucky enough tonight. The group that I have here got people from all over the country, and not only all over the country, we got people from Nevada. Did I say that right, Jay?
No,
Dang it,
Nevada.
Nevada. So we got Nevada represented. We got some Alabama represented. I got a fellow Jerseyite here with Mr. Mosca joining us from the Shore chapter. Well, then we also got some a little NFL love and a little Big 12 love. So Sheldon, I think you're joining us from Texas, and Brandon, you out in
Correct.
Cali?
Phoenix area,
Oh,
Arizona.
Phoenix area. Okay. Well, gentlemen, once again, thank you. And Jay, I'm going to start off with you, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the fantastic fans I got out there.
Sure, no problem. Jay Lessig. I'm recently returning to Reno, Nevada after a couple of years doing high school in Oklahoma and a few years before that in Colorado. This will be my 20th year on the football field, and I've been working about the last 10 as an umpire, have a state championship here in Nevada, so I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. Enjoy the high school level. I've done a little junior college. I'm looking forward to next season.
Very nice, very nice. And I'm going to go around how my screen is set up here. So, Mr. Cruz, we'll jump over to you next.
All right, happy to be here. Really appreciate, Mike, what you're doing. Just raising awareness for the craft. Providing a resource to everybody. So I live in the Phoenix area. Just finished my third year in the NFL. Sheldon and I, who you're going to hear from pretty soon, I know, we teamed up for a few years in the Big 12. He might say he's the reason I'm in the NFL. Let's see what he says. I don't know. It might be true, by the way. Our crew was pretty good when he came on. Before the Big 12, I was in the Mountain West, so spent a lot of time in Nevada, working the various schools in Nevada. And anyways, I started officiating when I was 19 years old as a college student at the South Dakota School of Mines in Rapid City, South Dakota. And my first game, I was an umpire. So there you go.
There you go. You started right away with it. All right. So, Sheldon, we'll pass it over to you.
Yes, Sheldon from Dallas, Texas. This is going to be my 22nd year. Uh, Started out in Conference USA. I did 5 years over there. Came to the Big 12. This will be my sixth season. Like Cruz, you said, worked a couple of seasons with him. We had a great time. Oh man, we got some good memories on that crew. And happy to be here. And let's rock and roll.
All right. And Bob, you'll be up next.
Hey guys, I'm Bob Shoulders from Birmingham, Alabama. Brandon, I think I saw you a few years ago in the UFL.
Absolutely. Yep.
Uh,
I remember your advice. You gave me a lot of advice. I remember it all. Trust me, it was great.
42 years. I started when I was 4 years
Mm.
old. Um, Started out as a linesman and a couple of great college officials where we had some mutual friends. And one told me that if I wanted to go to a higher level, if you could learn and uh, the skill of being an umpire, that a good umpire was worth his weight in gold. And I mentioned to Mike earlier, I've got a book that was written back in the 30s by a crew from the Big 12, actually written by the referee at that time, who was the renowned referee of the Big 10, not the Big 12. And as we know, referees kind of have a different aura about them, but this one told is written in the book, and I'll find it when I get home tonight to get it. But anyway, he said um, everybody knows that nobody runs a game except the umpires, and no truer thing has ever been said. We're kind of the traffic cop. We're the guy who keeps the referee grounded. Um, when he looks over at us with that deer in the headlight look, we got to be the one that kind of calms him down and says, "Hey, oh wait a minute now, let's don't forget about so and so as we're going through penalty enforcement." Um, and when it all goes crazy, we're the ones that are right in the middle of the action. That's
Mhm.
no truer words have ever been spoken. But anyway, I love it. I've officiated it actually every level, um, and now I have given up all the extra management and other kind of duties 2 years ago, and I'm back on the field on Friday nights doing what I started out loving to do, and it's been great.
Good.
Mm.
Well,
Good for
glad
you.
that you're back. All right, and last but not least, my fellow Jersey Shore guy, Mr. Mosca. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here with some fellow umpires talking football. Early in my career, I started off a little bit of coaching here and there, a little bit of high school of the little guys. Then 2014, a good friend of mine said, "Hey, you like football? You're a little crazy. Why don't you get into officiating?" And then I've been just with the NJFOA short chapter ever since. Umpire from day one, love every second of it, and just keep on rocking with it.
Good stuff. Well, gentlemen, once again, I truly do appreciate you all taking the time and getting some good feedback already. Mark, to Bob, we are truly the anchors of the crew. Bob is what Mark is saying here on YouTube. So for those people that are out there listening, thank you. Keep the comments rolling in. But yeah, I think we all could take it. And I saw all the head nods going in agreement with Bob saying that we're the ones that are maintaining the flow of the game and everything like that. And I certainly do agree with you. And I think I personally I put on the white hat myself every once in a while. Brandon, I know that you've worn the white hat too, and we've all been different positions. What made us all gravitate to that middle position, to that umpire position? Because it's a unique spot, as we know in this private group here. So, Sheldon, I'll start off with you on this one. What made you get into being the umpire?
Actually, I started out as a back judge.
Yeah.
I was a 200 and probably
Something.
15, 20 pounds back judge, and I thought I was the man, which I was. I was pretty good at back judge though. And let's see who was there. I think it was might have been Eugene Hall, maybe. He said, "Hey," he said, "Sheldon need to be working umpire or something. He too big to be working back there." And a couple of guys is retired now, and they said, "Hey, what you go to umpire?" So I went to umpire what, probably over a little 10 years ago, and I never looked back. I love it. You couldn't get me to work nothing else on the field. Nothing else
Yeah.
on the field. So
Eh,
that's how I got to umpire. I was too big to work back judge.
And how about you, Jay?
I'm going to name drop. I'm going to say Scott Campbell. His second year in the NFL, he was a clinician at our junior college stuff out of Stockton, California, many years ago when he first embarked on his Pac-12, Big 12 career, and sat down next to him at one of the lunches, sharing a really, really bad sandwich from the caterer. And I said, what got you into this? And he says, no one else wants to do it.
Yes, sir.
And I thought to myself, that fits with my Marine Corps personality and some other things that I do. And so I said, I'm game. And from that moment on, that season on in high school, I want to be an umpire. I want to be an umpire. And ever since, whether it's been junior college or any attempts that I've made to move up, it's been umpire.
And it's funny that you say that too, because I will keep talking, and Neil and I were talking about our cadet class and stuff like that. People talk about the umpire position. I'm like, well, why don't you jump in there, give it a shot? Oh, what are you nuts? What are you crazy? I'm not going inside there. And so, yeah, you got to be a little bit nutty to be in there. But
So much
I was a
fun.
former I was a former offensive lineman. I was an offensive line coach before putting the stripes on, so that's where I feel comfortable being in there. Bob, how about yourself?
Well, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I was a center and a linebacker years ago, way back in the dark ages. And so when folks were looking, I started out as a wing official. Actually, I was, somebody mentioned, I started out doing college intramurals, which is the meanest football that there is. Uh, and then when I got back and started officiating initially, I was a wing official, but I mean, there are not folks that are comfortable in the middle. I mean, we know that.
No.
Most guys, they're scared. Really, there's a fear of being in the middle, and it was comfortable to me. And truthfully, one of the great SEC referees, Dick Burleson, longtime referee, and Dick said, if you're comfortable in that position, that you can go anywhere you want to go. And so that's how I got started. And then I worked in some small college, and then I have, you know, got into major college. I was in the SEC for years, and then when I retired because of an injury, I kind of got back and started doing a lot of training. And I was one of the directors for the Alabama High School Athletic Association, and I was a scout for both college and the NFL. And usually they were sending me to observe and kind of evaluate umpires. That was my background.
All right.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Cruz, so you're up next. What got you into being an umpire?
Well, I mean, that first game I worked, it was just we showed up and I didn't really know. I just got a call to show up to the field. I barely could put a uniform together. I was 19. I didn't have the problem Sheldon had. I had no size, I had no speed, and I had no strength. That's why I started officiating at 19 years old. Sheldon was probably trying to play. I'm sure all you others on here were trying to actually play the game at 19 years old. I was trying to figure out how to officiate the game. So that kind of tells you where I was at athletically. So that was random, but then I worked, like my first year of varsity football, I worked as an umpire, and it was a 4-person crew. I didn't have a back judge. I don't know how we did it, other than the fact that there probably wasn't as much passing then as there is now. But still, right? We were pretty vulnerable in a crew of 4. We worked a state championship with a crew of 4, and I was the umpire. Can you believe that? A state championship game.
Never heard of it.
And the game was. I always say I don't really remember the games that well. I kind of remember some of the games. This game I remember. It came down to an onside kick, and both teams were in the 30s in the score. So crew of 4, and we got a shootout. It's just like, what were we even doing, right? How do we cover that? It's just crazy to think about that. So as I went along, I got kind of, well, I had some really fortunate opportunities at the referee position. So my journey back to the umpire position is probably mostly as a result of my experience at the referee position, because I'm not as brave as you guys. I'm not sure I could be there 8 yards deep. I mean, I played linebacker, but like I said, I was terrible. I was So my current role is just a mirror of my former role in terms of where I stand and what I look at. Obviously, the referee role in the NFL is the crew chief role in the NFL is major big time stuff. So me as an umpire, I'm not nearly as brave or accomplished as you guys who are courageous enough to get back there with those linebackers. I just run up there and pretend like I get involved. You guys are actually there in the middle.
And Brandon, we're going to come back to that because I definitely want to talk about the umpire being in the offensive backfield as opposed
Yeah.
to the defensive backfield and how that correlates to you being an R and stuff like that. So that's
Sure.
a great talking point. And Neil, finish off with you. You kind of mentioned what got you into the role of umpire, and you kind of just went to it.
Yeah, kind of fell in my lap, Mike. Your cadets year, you're coming out of class, you're getting on the field, working, trying to feel out your positions, kind of working everywhere to see where you like. And then the guy who wound up being my white hat came up to me. I'm putting a crew together of young guys, of young cadets, and are you interested? I said, I'm interested. He said, what position? And the words umpire just came right out of my mouth. It was just natural.
Nice.
Knowing how, like you guys said, being in the trenches, being in the middle, the action whipping right past you, you feel it and you love it. And I've just been rolling it since, Mike.
Good stuff. No, I had the pleasure of working with Neil when I was a short wing early in my career. Neil actually had to fill in for our umpire. It was actually a Thanksgiving Day game. Our umpire fell ill and couldn't physically work the game, so he ended up swapping out. And we were lucky enough that we had Neil as our. He was working the chains that day, so we were able to kind of just do a swap. So I had the opportunity to work with Neil in that aspect to see him work in the U position before I transitioned. I think it was 2 years after that I transitioned myself from being a short wing to the umpire position, and from being a coach, being the short wing for me was kind of easy because I coached for 20 plus years. So communicating with the official, it was one of the biggest things that I always enjoyed doing, even as an assistant coach. But I wanted to, I always kind of pushed the limit just to see where I could get away with, and I was also trying to test the referees because I thought I knew everything, which I didn't, not even close. Um, but being back on the sidelines as a short wing, I'm like, come on, coaches, bring me something better than that. I've been saying that for years, but I truly love being in the middle of the field. I truly love it. Like I said, I'm an old offensive lineman, old offensive line coach. So being in there, seeing the game, I'm calling out plays in my mind. I'm seeing that guard pull. I'm like, okay, here comes power my way. So I'm seeing it. I'm reading it. I'm knowing what's going on, and it's just fun being in there and interacting with the players and whatnot. So it's good stuff, but it definitely takes a special breed, and I think we all have that in us. So I got a question here from our YouTube panel here about equipment, and Brandon and Sheldon, I'm going to keep you guys out of this conversation right now with the equipment attire at the upper levels right now. But more so talking about the NFHS rules. With us being the umpires, we're kind of the ones that are going around pregame and enforcing the knee pads and the things like that. And the question is what are you guys doing for that with the knees being exposed? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm doing what my white hat tells me to do, and we're giving the kids the warning, and then we're playing football. And it's bad that I'm saying that, and I'm announcing that, but we have 6'7" kids out there, and their knee pads are riding up on them. Like I can't tell a kid to get off the field because he's tall. I can't do it. Because the school couldn't afford to get longer pants for them, or they couldn't get personally fitted for the right pants. Now, if they're blatantly pulling them up, and Sheldon, you're probably dealing with this the worst out of all of us with the bike shorts that you're seeing in the collegiate level. Um, But for the high school level, I'm making sure that they're all wearing they have the pads on, and if they slide up, hey, pull those pads back down, pull that shirt back down, cover up that back plate, things like that. But I'm not going to be the uniform police that I know Brandon has to deal with at the NFL level, and they've got people on the sidelines that are finding them. So, uh, Bob, Jay, what do you guys? What are your opinions on that?
Go
Jay,
ahead,
go
Bob.
ahead.
Okay, I'll take it. All right. This last couple of years down in Oklahoma, there was an emphasis on the knee pads and other uniform things. So what I came up with as an umpire was a blue index card, about a quarter of a sheet. And on one side, I listed, Coach, these are the uniform violations that can get your kids in trouble. And so I went down rule by rule for the mouthpiece, the knee pads, the all the things that we're supposed to be looking for during the entire game. And I would write down numbers on the flip side and say, these are the players that need these things addressed, Coach. Please take care of them before they came out. And then it made it easier for us to get the guys that were the repeat offenders, whether it was the knee pads, the tall kid, like you're saying. We could focus on fewer things by addressing them up front. And I got a lot of good positive feedback from coaches saying, wow, it's great. You got the rule references right here, so there's no doubt what the rule is. And keep the card, Coach. You know, it's for you to take home and worry about next week, you know.
Oh, good stuff. I like that. I may have to steal that idea.
That's excellent. That's really
Yeah. I did that, and it really helped also build relationships with coaches that weren't the head coach. You're dealing with this guy over here. He's the uniform guy. Go see my third assistant to the adjacent water guy, and he's the uniform guy. But you know, we also educated a couple of the medical staff about the thickness of padding and things like that, where we could show them in the rule book on a card, this is the rule. There's no doubt.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And how about you, Bob?
Well, and I'm kind of like you. I don't want to be the uniform police, but by the same token, I don't want somebody out there that's got something on that's going to cause an injury or could injure themselves. You know, a knee pad is not going to prevent a ligament or something like that damage, but it will prevent, you know, some kind of bone bruise or something like that if they're on a hard surface or they're on a turf field and go sliding on their knees and you know, suddenly they look down and that hide's come off their leg kind of deal, the old strawberry that we've all had.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do it with some level of comedy and cutting up and trying to, especially in the pregame. And I honestly, I mean, I'll look at them and I'll say, now you want to play today, right? And they say, you know, well, sure. I said, okay, I don't care what you wear out here in pregame. You can come out here in your underwear and do, I don't care.
Yeah.
But when we play the game, you're going to wear what you're supposed to wear. And if you don't, then you're going to stay over there on the sideline till you do. It's one way or the other. It's either me getting in trouble or you getting in trouble. I think you know which one I'm voting for. I said, you know, and I will tell the kids if you know if one thing when they got these jerseys that barely cover their shoulder pads and they got this big gut hanging out. I said, you know, you're not old enough to have a big gut. I don't want to see your gut. Your mama don't want to see your gut. Your girlfriend don't want to see your gut. Pull your shirt down. But the big one and it's sensitive, and you'll understand why in a minute. But these play cards, and they start wearing them on their belts instead of on their arms. And I had a teammate of mine back when these play card things first came out. He almost got a finger ripped off. It had to be sewed back on in a game because as he making a tackle, he's a linebacker in college, and he was making a tackle, got a finger caught the play guard, and it almost ripped his finger off. And I'll tell them that, you know, here's why. Here's why you don't need to do that. And I'm telling you from personal experience. And then and then I try to use their teammates. Hey, tell so and so to pull his pants down or pull his knee pads down. Tell so and so to you know. But like I said, going back to the safety thing, the deal with the play card, that's one that's kind of personal to me, and again try to explain why. And usually I don't have any trouble with them after that. But the knee pads. I mean, they see Saturday and they see Sunday, and yeah, the coaches don't want to mess with it. We don't want to mess with it, but to some degree, we got to mess with it at least a little bit and address it. But you know, I honestly last year I had a punter in a game, and he came out. He had four different towels on, every one of them a different color. Four, and he had his pants were bike shorts. I mean, he had everything, and I just looked at him I didn't see. He came out and punted the first time. He was coming down the field. And I looked at him. I said, "Do not come back out here like that again, or I'm gonna send you out. If you can have a towel, I don't care what color it is. You can have one towel. A punter doesn't need four towels." I said it and pull your pants down over your knees. And he wanted to argue, and I couldn't believe a punter, and I just said, "Look, you go talk to your coach, and y'all get it straightened away before you come out here punting again." And he had a real attitude. He was a showboat. He was a great punter, but he was a showboat, and you just kind of gotta, as an umpire, you got to stand your ground with some things. Our teammates. Um, Most of them aren't going to stand their ground with something like that. And sometimes when you get that oddball case like that, you may have to stand your ground a little bit just to make sure they know whose ball game that they're playing in that night.
Hmm.
And I think everybody here can attest to we're saying that we're kind of unique individuals, but now when you're talking about football players themselves, I think we all can agree that kickers are unique individuals in their own right
Oh
too.
yeah,
When you mentioned that story, I'm not too surprised by that because, well,
prima donnas.
yeah.
Oh,
I keep
So,
the ball.
Neil, I saw you kind of just giving the point like you were in full agreement with that.
It, uniform police, I mean, it's just too much. I get how these kids are, the copycat leagues, rolling up the pants. Throughout the game, your pants are coming up. You're not going to bust their balls. But it's when they start rolling them up on purpose. That's what chaps me. I had a game, kid, third quarter, he's rolling up his pants right in front of me. I looked to my right, said, "Come on, man. At least try and hide. I'm right here." Rolls him back down. I kid you not, the next play, same exact thing.
Yep.
Get out. I had enough. Like, that's the stuff, the blatant stuff that on the field you're trying to do it. That's where I draw the line there. Like you said, in the pregame, you talk to the kids as much as you can. I don't bother the head coach, but like Jay said, you want to talk to the assistant coaches. It just makes more sense. And then you just warn these guys as much as you can, and until you had enough.
Yeah, and that's the beauty that we have of being right there in the middle with them, is we can talk to them. And I've killed the play. I've walked up to the offensive lineman coming out of the huddle, and I'm standing right over the ball, which we're not. Our mechanic now is we're deep already before they're coming out of the huddle. But I'm standing over the ball and I'm giving my warnings right then and there to both sides. I'm like, guys, enough. Let's go. We're here to play football, not deal with fashion. So you want to look good, go out afterwards and go on your dates afterwards. But right here, we're here to play football. So do what you guys got to do to be on the field.
Yeah, I think,
And
Mike,
then,
when you stop the game or you send somebody out, you're sending a message.
yeah, yep. So, one interesting fact that I did hear, and I'm trying to remember who told me this one, but one of the big reasons because I brought it up with the NFHS about the knee pads. I'm like, and I think Bob, you mentioned it. Uh, Nobody's getting a knee turf burns so bad that they can't play ball anymore, and the knee pads aren't stopping the ACL injuries and stuff like that. But one of the big reasons that they're still proponents with it, and while they won't at our level, at the high school level, is they're saying that it's preventing concussions. And it was something that I didn't think about too often, but with
Hmm.
the running backs and I'm kind of old school. I still remember, I still call the drill Roger Craig drill because watching Roger Craig back with the 49ers back in the day, running with the high knees and stuff like that, he used to steamroll people just with his legs. and they were the NFHS was saying, well, we were seeing concussions kind of rise because kids getting kneed in the head with a bare knee and not being a padded knee. I'm like, all right, so that the safety aspect, I never thought of it that way. Um, but again, if it slides up on a kid during the game, I can't bother with that. I mean, we got too many other things that we have to worry about. Um, Sheldon, I'm going to throw this to you because I've brought this up to another collegiate official. I said with the NIL stuff that's going on now, well, why don't you start finding the kids? If those kids want to come out in those bike pants, why does the NCAA start going to fine? Now I know you can't give me an answer for the NCAA, Sheldon, but it was just a thought that I threw out there to another college official, and they're like, "Oh, it kind of makes sense." But what are your thoughts with the uniform stuff?
Uh, I used to police it. You know, I go to the equipment manager. I'm a little different. I go to the equipment manager because he's responsible. He passes out the equipment because the head coach got other things to do. He's full. He's running around. He's doing this. He's doing that. He got better things to do to worry about uniform, and they don't want to get involved in it no way. So I go to the equipment manager. I tell him, hey, you got several players out of uniform, and hey, this is how they need to be when they come back out. So that's how I deal with that. But now they got so relaxed, NIL deal and all this crap. So it's so relaxed now, and it's kind of like I don't know if it's really been said, but it's kind of like, just leave it alone now. So I
Yep.
don't really too much bother it now. Only thing that I do address, I stay on top of. I can't let you come out here with biker shorts, and I prefer you to cover the back flaps.
Yeah.
That's a pet peeve of mine is covering those back flaps, man. Because I seen a guy fall on one, and it hit him across the throat, and it didn't get up. So that's to me, that's a big safety with me is those things, those two things right there. The rest of it, I just leave it alone because if they not gonna address it from the top, then hey, why should I address it? So I just leave it alone because it just got so relaxed now.
Yeah, it's true, and again, I kind of I'll defer this one to my white hat because I asked him the first game that I was working with my white hat, hey, what do you want to do? He's like, give him the warning pregame and play football unless it's super egregious. So that's kind of what we do, and we're looking to just play football at that point in time, and it's bad. Am I circumventing the rules? Yeah, a little bit, but we're out there to play football and for well not us play football but for the kids to play football, so that's my goal.
Right.
So
And I think the only way you're going to fix it is some kind of fine, take a timeout away. I think those probably the only couple of ways you're probably going to be able to nip it in the bud. I think I don't even think sending a player out going to really get it. I think you got to really hit him where it hurts, and I think it'll stop it all. But until we get there, we'll just deal with what we have.
yeah, and unfortunately it is kind of a systemic type of a scenario that we can control so much but we can't control it all, unfortunately, and that seems to be one of the biggest bones of contention is that equipment stuff. So Brandon, you got the easy one because I mean those guys are getting fined on the sidelines with the fashion police if their socks are too high or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how was
Yep.
it when you were back in the college days, though, and back in the high school days for you?
Yeah, we worked at several points of emphasis around, uniform compliance and things like that. And it's hard. It's hard to manage all that with everything else. And remember, I don't know, mid 20 teens, maybe late to mid 20 teens when everybody was running an up tempo offense. Remember that?
Hmm.
And they still are, but not. I don't think it's as much. Like when I was in the Big 12, and our play counts were over 200 a game on average. Now, that's a lot of plays in a game, but that was our average. So, how do you prioritize uniform compliance, counting players, substitution mechanics, and all your other various pre-snap routine items from your respective position, right? How do you prioritize all that? So, I know that was very challenging for all of us, and but the thing about that's great about officials is that usually when you task a group of officials with a point of emphasis, they deliver. Now, officials, they may over deliver at times where we get a little, we get that memo or we get that training video and then boom, you're going to get the calls. You maybe don't want as many calls as you're going to get or as many, administrative actions as you're going to get. But you can never fault us for not caring because we take those directions and we execute. And I think that's what's one thing that's great about the community of officials. And as you've already said, it usually revolves around the umpire. It really usually does. The execution usually revolves around the umpire, guarding the ball or stopping the play and talking to the players. I mean, how many times do you get from your other officials, hey, can you talk to 75?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and so, hey, have it, like in this case, have him pull his shirt down, have him cover his knees. Looks like his chin strap's not buckled. I mean, and usually it's the umpire executing that. So certainly I've been through a lot of that.
Yeah. So you brought up now another topic that I wanted to talk about with the up tempo, and Sheldon, you mentioned this before about being too big to be a back judge. Let's talk about the physical demands that our position has, because it's definitely it's a unique aspect of the physical demands, because not only in Brandon's case, being now in the offensive backfield, you're doing a lot more running. Sheldon, are you on the offensive side or defensive side? I just to
No,
confirm.
I'm on the defense. No,
You are
we
still on the
we
defense.
we 8 man. We got a center judge and all that else.
Okay. So that's where you guys are. I know we're on the defensive side, but you got the physical demands of, uh, and an example, Brendan, you just mentioned. I worked a high school game. We had 180 snaps in this game because both teams were no huddles, and it was a state championship game. It was a fantastic football game. 34-35 was the final score. Great game. Both teams no huddle the entire game, and it was nonstop. And it wasn't until after the game that we realized how much running we did, but the intensity was great. So the fitness aspect, and I actually got to give a shout out. I got my running ref shirt on here,
There
so
it
I know
is.
Brandon can
Oh
appreciate
yeah.
them. But the physical demands of our position. What are your guys' thoughts with it? With the bigger umpire, you're too big to be there. Or you should be an umpire. I personally believe that we need to start getting younger at our position. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. I'm 50 and I'm in line for a knee replacement in the next couple of years myself. Um, so I know the physical demands that I've done to myself, but I've also seen the umpires get taken out, and we've all been in that position where we've been knocked down, taken out, run into, or even worse. So, I mean, we physically gotta be on our A game. And if I'm worrying about a uniform, I'm not worrying about that 300-pound guy coming on a down block to get up a safety or something like that. So, there's a lot of different things. So, Neil, I'll start off with you. What are your thoughts with the fitness that we need to have and the different challenges that we place in being an umpire?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with where you position on the field. I mean, years of experience goes a long way, knowing where to stand and what to avoid, all that stuff. But yeah, any official needs to be in decent shape. I myself, I mean, I know you're saying a lot of the older umpires, they don't move as much. I try and make some pride into moving more, help my guys out on the sides, retrieve balls. Sometimes I have to, when I do place the ball down, I'm staying there a little bit longer, letting the linemen know my presence. If they're talking, then I have to back out real quick and get into position. So make sure I move. I'm quick. A lot of it is mental, though, Mike. I think, like I said, being where you're supposed to be and knowing where the play is going to be, who's behind you, and your surroundings.
Yep. And how about you, Brandon? Because I know with being in the offensive backfield, that was probably the biggest pushback. Because here in New Jersey, I'm trying to push to get the U in the offensive side for safety reasons. But the biggest pushback is it's too much running. It's too much running. And my response is, well, then let's get in shape. No, and myself included. Like I'll throw myself into that category. I have off-season workout programs that I do, but on average, how much running are you doing on a Sunday afternoon? Do you guys track that at all? Is there any metric that they use?
I've never personally tracked it or really. I would hate to have myself think about that in the beginning of the fourth quarter. You really just got to play the game play the hand you're dealt, play the game that's given to you. So I guess I personally don't worry about that, but you could probably do the math. I mean, I'm 15 yards deep in the backfield, and every play I move up to the line of scrimmage, right? At minimum, or not, or perhaps go downfield when they gain yards. So, I mean, we could probably do the math of 100, 150, 170 play game on how much running that is. But it doesn't matter to me because you just, once that 2 minutes hits in the fourth quarter of a competitive game, you got to be as sharp at that point in time as you were at the start of the game.
Yep.
And I think that's true of every position. That's not just the umpire position. That's true to every position. So, we got to be in shape. And I don't know. I mean, you got to be in shape if you're an umpire in the defensive backfield too. There's a lot of movements there specific to that position. And certainly when we move the umpire to the offensive backfield and leave a so-called hole in the right behind the defensive line there, there's pros and cons to that. You talked about safety of the officials. I think that's probably true. What about that? What about the look on the inside that we're giving up, right? Yeah. Defensive holding. Sheldon has basically become one of the very best in the country at detecting these defensive holds, these pull and shoots. But forget about that. I mean, that's a rare call, chop blocks, offensive hold. Sometimes that's a better look. And then are we guarding the second level? So I think there's a lot of things we give up. And now with crew of 7 umpire in the offensive backfield, what they've done is they've reconfigured all the mechanics to have the back judge start more inside, almost like an umpire used to. So is that good? Are we giving something up there? I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to think about. So I wouldn't say that just the umpire in the offensive backfield is the need to be in shape. I think we all want to be in shape, just not only for what we do on the field, but just for overall health and wellness and being there for our families. Yeah, you might do a little more running if you're an umpire in the offensive backfield. I'll tell you this and then I'll stop, but once we get in the flow of the game and we get our ball mechanics going and the game just starts to flow and I'm running and I just feel part of the game, from that position. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think you can relate to that, whatever position you work. If you're in the defense and you're in the offense, you're line of scrimmage deep, that flow of the game is like the best feeling in the world. So I don't know. Mike, I don't really know if it matters what position you work, but we got to figure out how to get in the flow of the game. And the only way to experience that is to be in good shape, right? It's to be in good shape, whatever that means for you as an official.
Vince Lombardi, fatigue makes cowards of us all, because once we start getting fatigued, and that's when our mind starts to wander. And that's something that I know that I used to preach as a coach, of making sure that our kids were in the best shape possible, because come the fourth quarter, if they're thinking they're tired, they're not thinking about their assignment. So same thing as an official. If I'm thinking that I'm tired, or man, I can't believe we're at 170 snaps right now, but no, I got to think about the next snap and what's going on and my pre-snap mechanics and all those other things. So
totally. And I'll reiterate, that's why I would not want to know how many miles I've ran. You know what I mean? Seriously. Like, oh my God, I've ran, let's say we've got a game that's a lot of scoring, whatever. I would not want to know that I've ran 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles. And I still got another quarter to play.
Yeah.
I don't need that, because I mean, there's so much other things to focus on, right, Sheldon? So I mean, that's noise that I would not want to be even a part of, even though it's very, very possible these days to have that number.
Because if you know that, you look at that and you know, oh dang, I just did 6, 7 miles. Now your mind has went there, So now you're not focused. Now you need to come back and refocus. Now you tell everybody on the crew, hey, I just did 6, 7, 8, 9 miles, and we got another quarter, we got another play, or whatever the case may have. So you got to learn how to stay focused and not worry about how many miles you ran. And I
Yep.
think as an umpire, in my opinion, you got to be sideline to sideline. You got to be able to move. You got to be in the game. Because if you're not moving, to me, you're not in the game. The game is going to be trashy. The game comes through us as an umpire. The flow of that game, we dictate the flow of that game. We run, we operate. It's like a wheel. It's like the tires, the wheel on your car. You
Yeah.
know, we got to make it. We got to make it go. If it's not going, then guess what? We're not moving. The crew not moving. So we got to be those wheels on that car, that truck, or whatever, and make this game flow so it don't look crazy. And you can tell a game looking sloppy is how the umpire dictate the flow of the game, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, we've all seen it, and the umpires that are just staying in the middle of the field or staying between the hashes and waiting for the ball always to be relayed into them. Where I'm in agreement with you, Sheldon. I want to go sideline to sideline because, especially along that sideline where the short wings and then the deep wings are dealing with. Maybe a player going into the opposition's bench. Well, I want to be over there to help clean that stuff up and help my crew out to have their backs in that scenario too. But again, going back to what Bob and Jay were saying earlier, we're the ones that are setting the tempo of the game. So our presence being outside and just the kids seeing us and knowing that, okay, there's another set of eyes here. It makes the game go smoother. And like Brandon was saying, it keeps me in the flow of the game instead of just sitting back and being a spectator. I feel like I'm a part of the game where hopefully I'm a part of the game by not really having to do anything, but a part of the game just because of my presence being there. Jay, I saw you throw up on the chat about being the you in the offensive backfield in the 5 man game. Is that what you guys do?
Down in Oklahoma, the last 2 years, we started doing that. And that was part of the big discussion is what are we giving up in the middle to the flank guys,
Oh,
ineligible downfield, things like that. And then also we had to then accommodate between the back judge and the umpire and also your white hat, who has which half of the field lengthwise. How far downfield is the umpire then going to shag the ball for, let's say, a 12-yard run when your back judge is actually closer? So we had a lot of that mechanics of looking at each other and going, whose ball is it? Who's shagging what? And you have to pregame that. The big thing that I told my flank guys is stay put. The spot's more important than the ball. We're not going to do anything until I put the ball down. So let's all just wait a second. I'll get that ball. We'll worry about getting the spot. Take your time. But there were some adjustments that had to be made. And I think coming back here to Nevada, or even just doing a couple of college scrimmages, you realize how much you have to have that peripheral warning system up, that radar that says, is there a kid crossing behind or in front of me on this play, when I'm used to sitting back in the backfield and not having to worry about that at all. So switching back and forth is your awareness level and your radar is completely different. So it takes some getting used to.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Neil mentioned it before, and Bob, I'll ask you. I change my flank. I change my position a lot. I'm kind of getting a pre-snap read of strength of the offense, so I'm never going to be in the same exact spot every single play for them to use me as their pick, just so for safety purposes. But as long as keeping my keys and my line of focus, that's where I'm going to move. I'm not going to go way out to a slot receiver, but I'm going to kind of stay. Sometimes I'm on the same guard side as our R, where I'm supposed to be the opposite side, just to kind of give a little bit of a different look, so that that peripheral of those shallow crosses, that mesh route is the evil one for us to use in the middle. That mesh route, they're looking for us. They're trying to do the rub routes. So Bob, how do you work with stuff like that?
Well, we kind of backed up just a little bit from what it was, 10 or 12 years ago, 15 years ago. where you wanted to be years ago just behind the linebackers, make sure you were behind that second, second line group. But now we're wanting to be even further back. I'm probably this year, and I'm a whole lot slower than I used to be, and I never was fast, so that's a bad combination. So, but I'm probably back 8, 9 yards. I don't think I've ever gotten back to 10. I know I worked in the backfield about 12 years ago in the NFL for a short period of time. That's the first time I'd ever been in the offensive backfield. It gives you a whole different perspective. But boy, that does make a difference in that hole. If we're now in NCAA, you got the eighth man and you got the center judge in the backfield. Um, but the biggest problem that I've had is having contact from behind where I never, my peripheral vision, I'm okay peripheral, but I don't have eyes in the back of my head.
Yep, it's
And
that safety coming
some,
in.
a safety or even a linebacker that drops into coverage, and then suddenly he
Comes
and a
up.
tight end get tangled up, and they're coming straight at your back, or the safety and a slot guy go across the middle, and they get tangled up. And last year, a couple times, and I looked at it on film a few times, saying, "What's different? How in the heck did he get into me like that? That's so different. My peripheral vision gotten bad, but it wasn't. He was coming straight. I mean, he was lined up right in my back, and I never saw him, never felt him. And that's a tough. Sometimes that might happen once a year. Maybe you go 2 or 3 years without it ever happening, but it happens 2 or 3 times in a couple of weeks, and the old joints start kind of
Yeah.
they don't recover quite as quick as they once did. So, but I do try to stay still longer. I try to line up and move laterally. Probably, I might have been on the outside eye of the tackle a time or two. Usually, I'm going nose of tackle to nose of tackle, and we have the umpire can go wherever he wants to go, especially in seven when we're in high school working the 7-man crew. Umpire and really the referee. We allow the referee a little bit of freedom there. If he's most comfortable on the throwing arm, get there. If the throwing arm is right, but they're on the left hash, and he feels like he needs to be somewhere else to cover what he needs to cover, we give him the freedom to do that. We got some guidelines and some things where we'd like them to be, but we don't want to lock them in to where we get them over on one side of the field and makes it ultra difficult to cover stuff on the other side of the field when they can have a little freedom. But our umpires can, or in the 7-man, they're free to go wherever they think they need to go
That's good
laterally.
stuff. Yeah, and actually, one of the things that you brought up that I've really try working on, and I got this from a clinician that we have here in New Jersey, and he's a recently retired NFL official, Brandon Ed Camp. Familiar with Ed? Ed does a lot of great
Oh yeah.
stuff here in New Jersey for us, helping us out. And the one thing that he always brought up to us is having sniper eyes.
Yeah,
So the limiting your movement as the play is going allows you to have those sniper eyes and being focused. But that comes back to where are we pre-snap? Are we in a good position that we're able to see it? And for us, again, as umpires, are we in a safe position that we're still able to see everything, focus on our keys, but have those sniper eyes and only move when necessary? And then for us, we always say, let's hustle, not rush. So
that's right.
let's move with a purpose, but let's not rush things because that's what tends to make our mistakes. So, guys, we're actually, I mean, gosh, we could probably go another 2 hours with this, but I wouldn't want to do that to anybody out there. So, I want to propose this one last question to everybody, give everybody an ample opportunity for this one. The challenges that we face as umpires, be it a physical demand, be it a particular call or something. What do you all feel is one of the most difficult things that we're facing as umpires from our position, and one that I threw my first one of this year was a tripping penalty. I was like, holy
Mm.
crap! I got that one. It opened up, and it was. I always say let the play marinate, but no, this kid threw his leg back and he tripped up the ball carrier, and I brought it to our white hat, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Like he tripped him. You can't trip him anymore. That's NFHS rules. They're not allowed to trip the ball carrier." It was a true old offensive lineman. It was a true leg whip on the ball carrier. So, but what other challenges do you guys feel that we have as umpires? Chop blocks, different things like that. Jay, start with you.
Oh wow. Um, the small stuff. I think the biggest thing that gives me the most consternation on the football field is the extracurricular. We have rules in place for during the play. Post. It's when these kids get passionate and things like that, being able to manage the emotions of the game, because we have a framework for everything else. The biggest variable in that is the kid. And whether you've got a hothead or a kid that just doesn't listen well, or for whatever reason is swimming against the tide or swimming against the stream, on that football field, you got to be able to recognize those hotheads, the kids that are going to cause the game to get off the rails, and outside of that framework that you've worked so hard to establish.
Yeah, very good stuff. And that's I talk a lot about the preventative officiating and
Right.
always as us as umpires. I mean, we're probably not blowing our whistle very
We
much in
hear
the game.
all.
I no, that's the inadvertent whistles if we're blowing the whistle. So it's usually the first thing that I do is snap the ball. I'm spitting it out. No, that's why I wear the neck one. Bob, how about you? What do you feel one of the biggest challenges that we face as umpires?
Well, to me, there's kind of there's two things, and I love what Jay said about the little stuff going that. But I try to be real focused about the injury stuff, a chop block, and I'm trying to in my pre-snap walkthrough or my pre-snap procedure stuff. I'm always telling myself, all right, I got if I'm 7 man, I got guard, center guard, and I got the running back coming up. I'm looking for the chop block. I'm looking for a hold too, but more importantly, I'm looking for the chop blocks to go get somebody hurt.
Mhm.
The other thing, and you mentioned a minute ago, we talked about whistles. Guys, I don't know what y'all are seeing or hearing, but I have noticed kind of an increase over the last really probably 5 or 6, maybe 8 years, that our wing guys are not blowing their whistles at the end of a play. And I know that we all know that the whistle doesn't kill the play, but the whistle is a very important tool from my perspective that to indicate that the play is over. It stops some of that extracurricular activity because you guys are probably like me and most of the coaches, they tell the kids to go until what?
The
The
whistle.
You hear a
echo
The
of the
whistle
whistle,
blow.
whistle.
right? Till they hear a whistle. Well, if our wing guys are not blowing whistles coming in to give the spot, a kid may have his back to the play. He may have no idea that the play's over and he's still blocking. He may be legally blocking, but if the guy he's blocking realizes that the play's over and he starts getting pissed off because the guy hadn't stopped, and we're not hearing whistles. Now, I know we're all scared of that inadvertent early whistle. I got it. And it's a fine line. We don't need to be quick with the whistle, but when we know things are down and you're the covered official, it is your job to signify to everybody else that the play's over. And that stops a lot of that extracurricular stuff that tends to keep going and going and going. And will sometimes start building in a game that we end up having to get in the middle of and try to get folks to stop. Well, and the answer is, well, I didn't hear a whistle. I was just going until the whistle blew. So that's
Mhm.
one of my pet peeves.
Good stuff. Yeah, it is something, and I know we talk about it on our crew. Uh, Sometimes we're not going to have a whistle or something. Our white hat always emphasizes one whistle. One whistle is all we need. We don't need the extra whistles. We don't. He's big proponent, doesn't like the Me Too flags, but one whistle is the key one. So make sure you see the ball and then kill
Right.
it. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
some times
and
where
I
I'm killing it with my voice.
and I'm agreeing with that. I don't think everybody needs to be blowing the whistle, but the covering official, the one who clearly has the spot, he's the one that needs to let everybody know it's over.
Yes. And how about you, Neil?
And piggy off, Bob, what we do in our crew when we hear a whistle, I'm coming in. I think you do the same thing, Mike. We're running in. Hey, plays over, separate. Let me get the ball. Then you get in there, break it up. But on top of that, for me, it's like the extracurricular stuff because in the middle, you can see hold. You see them. Times we let that go here in New Jersey or the high school level. Those chop blocks, rare, but you know when you see it. It's what we do in our crew. What we say in our crew is we feel the pulse of the game. When we know the antennas need to go up, the linemen are getting a little chippier. The receivers and the D-backs are getting a little chippier. We give each other, hey, feel the pulse, get a pulse of the game. That's when my umpires' antennas are more focused than anything else part of the game.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty rare that you something flashes all of a sudden and blows up. I mean, it does happen, but it's pretty rare. Normally, it builds up, and we need to make sure or try to make sure we're getting a feel for it as it's building, and try to get it settled down then, rather than let it build up to a flash point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mr. Cruz, how about yourself?
Yeah, the players are so good that I'm fortunate to work with now. For us, our consistency on offensive holding, we call false starts, offensive holding, some pass interferences, and then a handful of other things, and that's really about it. False starts always probably going to be our number one, but holding's always our number two. And the challenge is, how consistent can we be? How does that play to the stakeholders, being the players who are blocking, the players getting blocked, right? The coaches who are coaching both players, and then what does it look like to the viewing audience, whether that's in the stadium or on TV? So the consistency in offensive holding is something I think, I don't care what level it is, we're always battling and trying to continuously improve, and I love that process. And then I'll add this as an umpire, and I work with the Big 12 center judges too, and I challenge our umpires and our center judges to become the chief administrative officer of the crew. That referee, he's the CEO. He's got the FaceTime. He gives the speeches and the announcements, and the camera is on the referee, but there's somebody in the background doing the work, and that's us. That's the umpire. That's perhaps the center judge, but as Sheldon knows, he's always supervising that center judge as an umpire in crew of 8. So we're the chief administrative officer of the crew. And that means this: when we get a breakdown in penalty enforcement or measurement mechanics or whatever it is, the things that hold the crew together, the things that make the crew look good, we got to be out ahead of that, and we got to detect that, and we got to do everything in our power to find it, fix it, and then help make sure it never happens again. So penalty enforcement's sometimes we tend to take it for granted and we get complacent, and then we make a mistake. We enforce it from the wrong hash, or we enforce it from the wrong spot. And if we're honest with ourselves, and if all of us, whoever's viewing the call, or maybe all of us here tonight, if we all looked back at all of our penalty enforcements over the past 5 years, what's our accuracy rate? And I'm not saying, did we mark it 10 yards? Because I'm sure we did. But did we mark it from the right lateral spot? Did we mark it from the right enforcement spot, whether that was the previous spot, the spot of the foul, the end of the run? And if we didn't, that one or two that we didn't, we got to take that on. We got to take that on and demand that our crew becomes perfect. And don't let the crew mess up. Don't let the crew mess up. We got the ball. We're marking it off. We are the tip of the spear in perfecting the administration of the game. So I always say that we're the chief administrative officer of the crew. I'm going to be out ahead of what the referee's thinking. I'm going to be out ahead of what the calling official's thinking. If it's a pass play and the deep wing or the back judge or we got a flag, I pretty much know there's only 2 or 3 fouls it's going to be. So I'm already enforcing everything in my head. I'm getting the football. I'm not depending on anybody. Like Sheldon, we own the game. And so that is the greatest challenge of what we do. But when it's done well, that's why the game plays well to the audience at the stadium. That's why the game plays well to the audience on TV. Quite frankly, that's why we're the most popular game in the country now, is because we do the work to make it play well. And I mean, the players are the reason everybody watches, but we set the table so that they can showcase their talents, right? We set the table and run the game, and that's what this position's all about.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more on that one. All right, and our final panelist, Sheldon, what do you feel is one of the biggest challenges that we face as umpires?
Man, all you guys said some good things. I'm going to say one of the challenge could be, and I hope they could revisit it up above. I would say false start versus DOD. It's a challenge. It's kind of wishy-washy, in my opinion. It's times that we should have had DOD. It's times we should have had a false start. We just got to find which way we going, or what kind of, how we going to do it going forward, so we can kind of all be on the same page across the football nation. So I think that's probably one of the challenges, that. And then the second one is probably, I would say, the dead ball stuff. You just can't let the dead ball stuff go. Whether if you flagging it or speaking up, saying something to the player, you got to nip it in the bud. You got to stay on top of it. And I mean, you just have to, because if you don't, hey, the game is going to turn sour real fast. So if you can nip it in the bud in the first quarter, it'll take care of the rest of those quarters. So you got to get it in the first half. You can't wait and get it in the second half. And if it's a strong personal foul or UNS, it's a foul in the first quarter, it's a foul in the fourth quarter.
Yes, sir.
So it's like we can't play with 12, and we can't start a play. We can't have a false start. We just can't do it. We can't have 12 on offense. We can't have 12 on defense. We just can't do it. We just can't play a game like that. Or we can't start a play out like that. So that'll probably be my challenge would be, or challenges that we probably face.
No, that's great stuff. And listen, like I said to start off the show, we are a unique entity for our position, for our group that we do, and for what we do, I should say. And we're the ones that are dictating the pace of the game. And you all said it to some capacity. We're setting the tempo. We're in charge. It's our voice that the kids are hearing most of all. Yeah, the crowd's hearing and looking at the white hat, but it's us that are trying to control the game, and it's a lot on our shoulders. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Personally, I love it. I enjoy it. It's why I do what I do, and hopefully make the game a little bit better for everybody that's involved in the games that I get the privilege of working in. So, with that, guys, once again, I truly appreciate everybody taking the time. But I would be remiss, and I mentioned this pre-show to the panelists here. I want to share with everybody a couple of things that I was able to find about a couple of our panelists here. So, start off with Mr. Cruz here first. So this is as an
Colorado State mugging the line, and they're surely going to have guys back.
Flags.
False start.
False start. Everybody but the center on the offense. Penalty. It's second down.
So yeah, Mr. Cruz, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen that one before. I never realized that was you until tonight, to be honest with you. And
oh yeah,
Sheldon, I've got.
Well, I didn't make it. I didn't make it up. I didn't. Make it. That's been a classic announcement for years and years. And you always kind of find your opportunity. You don't want to poke fun at the players, but that one was so obvious that the whole crew said, "Hey, this is your chance, man." So.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
And Mr. Davis, would you like explaining what we got going on here in this image?
You know what? Never do this, but it goes back to when you had that old veteran guy and say, "Hey, you the umpire. You don't let nobody come in there and mess your game up." So that was one of those times that my mind went back to old veterans. Say, "Hey, you can't let nobody come in there and destroy your game or try to mess your game up, slow your game up. So you gotta nip it in the bud."
I think it was the blue turf may have gotten to you too. So it kind of plays with your mind there.
It was hot, and we don't get paid by the hour, so.
Nope.
Remember the parody video we did the next week on that, Sheldon?
I do remember. I got it somewhere.
I will definitely not share it with you 6 people. I will definitely.
Well, if you could send that on a private email.
Never try that at home.
Right.
No. And for those listeners out there that didn't see the picture, well, go to YouTube to see the picture. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody.
It's all over the world.
Gentlemen, once again, I truly do appreciate you taking the time out. We kind of went a little bit longer than expected here, but like I said, we could probably sit here and talk for hours, grab a cold one, and just talk football all night if we needed to. But I wouldn't do that to anybody here. But once again, guys, thank you very much. For the listeners that are out there, I hope you were all able to get something here from this esteemed panel that I was lucky enough to put together tonight. If anybody out there has any questions, you could always email me, MikeDThereferee@gmail.com. And if it's for any of our panelists, I could definitely reach out to them and find out an answer for you. But gentlemen, once again, truly appreciate what everybody is doing for our sport. Truly appreciate you all being that position, that you position. And once again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Had a lot of fun. See you guys.
That's great.
Appreciate
Good job,
it, man.
everybody.
You guys have a
keep
good
it up,
season.
man. Thanks for everything you do. All right.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys, we are done recording and streaming, and it looks like everybody is uploading pretty good. Hey, guys, listen, I truly do appreciate everything. I think that was great. And for what we do in the middle, yep, we're all uploaded. Beauty.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you enough. So.
Yeah, thank you.